Okay, Erev Tov, everyone. So carrying on until Hot Chanukah, we've got one day left to get it right. So we've been talking about who lights the candles and where you light the candles. Just one point I wanted to add on. Again, in the last discussion that we had, so we spoke about if you go out to somebody's house and somebody asked me, I mentioned, said, does it go by where a person is sleeping? That's considered their home. And the answer is generally speaking, yes. But there is an exception to that, and I think it's important to point out. So we saw the Biur Halacha said as follows: the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Taf Reish Ayin Zayin, talks about the din of an achsenai, meaning somebody who's a guest in somebody else's home, and what the person would do, either there's somebody else at your home who is still at home who's lighting, then they would light on your behalf because the mitzvah is on the household. Or we spoke about the concept of joining in together with the balabait and lighting with them. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch mentions that when he brings these solutions, he says, Im yesh lo petach patuach le'atzmo tzarech la'adlik befitcho. In other words, a person is staying over at somebody else's house, but they have a separate room, or that really they have a separate entrance, or a separate house, a separate place where they're staying, so they would have to light there. And why is that? So the Mishnah Berurah explains, he says, Tamo, you have a separate area, separate court, separate room, entrance. And people see that this is a different house. You see it from the street. People see a person goes in and comes out. There is going to be a chashad. People are going to suspect you that they see you going into the house, but there's no Hanukkah candles outside. So how come you don't light? Because they don't know that you're actually eating somewhere else. Now, first of all of this would clearly only apply in a reality where we're lighting outside. If you're lighting inside and nobody can see it, we've discussed, that wouldn't apply. This whole concept of chashad. But essentially what comes out of this and what it sounds like is that in fact, where the person is living and where the person is eating is considered what their home is. And it's only because of the side element of chashad that we would say you would have to light specifically where you sleep. Okay, we mentioned the Biur Halacha last time. The Biur Halacha again gives the extreme case where he says, see the Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah points out the following. If you go, right, just one evening, you go out for supper and you join friends at a party or whatever, okay, just because you've eaten there once, that doesn't turn that into your home. You're not living there. People go out and eat somewhere all the time. That's not what we're talking about. He says, if a person goes to his parents or his in-laws and he eats there and he sleeps there the whole week of Chanukah, I told you this was an extreme case. Okay, so there, he says, then he would light there together with him because he is eating and sleeping there for the entire week of Chanukah. So the question was asked. What if a person is in a certain house, is eating there, is staying there the whole time, is essentially living there, but they go somewhere else to sleep the night of Chanukah? Okay, the Biur Halacha does not address that case. So you look, the Rama actually says, he says the following, right? He said, Yesh omrim, dibizman hazeh shemadlikim bifnim mamash, yadlik b'makom she'ochel v'chein nahagu. Again, going back to this case of a guest, a person who's a guest somewhere else, but he has a separate room or a separate entrance, even a separate house where he's sleeping. The Rama says that there are those who say that the only reason why you would have to light where you're sleeping is because of chashad, because of pirsum hanes. Okay, but here, nowadays, the Rama is talking about the reality in Chutz La'aretz as it was, where everybody lights inside. So then he says, light at the place where you eat. Okay, and he says that is the minhag. Then the Mishnah Berurah points out over here. He says, why would that be? He said, "B'makom she'ochel, timakom achilato ikar." The place where he's eating, it's actually the main place. Okay, so then the question is asked: in our reality, where some people are lighting inside, some people are lighting outside, what we come out with is what seems to be is the following: that in a situation where nobody lights outside, if we're in Chutz La'aretz, where everybody lights inside, so there's really no pirsum hanes actually, and there's no chashad at all. So the place where you're eating all 8 days of Chanukah, that's the place where you light. If there are still people that are lighting outside. So I saw the Yalkut Yosef, he says, nowadays, this whole element of chashad, we don't really have to be worried about it. Why? Because the moment that we say some people are lighting inside and some people are lighting outside, if I walk past the home and I see there's no Hanukkah candles outside, I'm not going to say they haven't lit. I'm going to say they lit inside. There are many people who do that, and that's a legitimate thing, even within the same city. Some people have the minhag to light inside, some people have the minhag to light outside. Okay. So chashad does not seem to be a problem. There's another reason which he brings why we aren't concerned for chashad. It's because when people light, it's not like in the days of the Gemara either. Nowadays, many people light a bit later because the time of, spoke about this on Sunday, but the time of Ajit Tichle Regel Min Hashuk, the time when people are still out and about and would see the candles, extends far beyond the half an hour that it was in the days of the Gemara. It extends for a few hours. So some people light early and some people light later. So the fact that people light in different places, the fact that people light in different times, I haven't seen this inside, but maybe we could add a third element to the mix, which is, if you walk around, certainly in Yerushalayim, even in this neighborhood, there are many, many homes which many months of the year nobody's living in them either because people live overseas or because people are visiting overseas, right? And they have a holiday home. So when I walk past the house, am I going to suspect that somebody hasn't lit their candles? Number one, they might have lit inside. Number two, they might have lit earlier or later. Number three, they might not have lit because they just aren't there. So all these things put together seems to be that for the chashad there is less concern. So what comes out of all of this, and again, a specific case that I was relating to, is like, let's say somebody is staying with one's parents, but not sleeping there. They're sleeping somewhere else, but they're eating together with the parents all of the week, and essentially that's where they're living. They just go somewhere else to sleep. So the only reason, in fact, that we would say that you would have to light candles where you sleep is because of chashad, which no longer applies. So therefore, where the person is eating, that's where, at the home together with the parents, that's where they would light the candles. I'll just read you the Nitei Gavriel, who's the Rav Tzina, of the posek in America. He writes this, I saw today, he says, Mi sheyesh lo shnei batim, echad miyuchad la'achila, v'sheni miyuchad l'shena. Okay, this is in a rich community. Somebody has two homes. One home where you eat and one home where you sleep. There are such things. So in that case, they're both your homes. You eat you light in the place where you eat. And then he says, again, if you have a guest who is eating in one place and is sleeping somewhere else, again, and this exact same case can come up. For example, somebody's a guest on Shabbat and you're eating with somebody but sleeping somewhere else, right? And he says to light in the place where one is eating, and based on this Ramah, and he says, it could be that if we say, again, this seems to be in a reality where everyone's lighting inside, which is not necessarily the case, but he says if it's a case where the main Pirsum Hanes is not for people outside, but it's really for those within the home. So the main time of Pirsum Hanes would therefore be at the time when everybody sits together to eat. Okay, so that was just in terms of that. That was interesting. A few more minutes, so we'll just talk about something else. In the Hararei Kedem, which is Shiurim of Rav Soloveitchik, so he has a section on Chanukah of Chidushei Agada. Brings a number of points, a number of chidushim relating to some of the tefillot and some of the things that we say in Chanukah. So he raises here an interesting question, right? We're going to say, took it down from the board because we always set this board up for Shabbat. So on Motzei Shabbat, we put up the sign that Ala Nisim, but we didn't realize we're going to be davening Mincha Maariv in the week upstairs. So I took it down in case anybody's looking and anybody said that Ala Nisim at Mincha by mistake. So don't start saying it yet, only at Maariv tomorrow night. But in the Tefillah of Ala Nisim, that we say, you think about it, there's some very interesting things that we say that come. So when it's Ala Nisim, Vala Purkan, etc., we say Va'ala Milchamot. And the question is, many ask, Soloveitchik asked the question, why do we say Va'ala Milchamot? Ala Nisim I understand, Ala Purkan I understand, Ala Teshuot that I understand. We're giving thanks for all the good things that have happened. Why are we giving thanks for the wars? We'd be better off without the Milchamot. Right? So he said, Tzarich Iyun Ma Shayach Lodot Ala Milchamot. ובאמת יש כוסים על התשועות, על המלחמות בלא וחיבור. So that's all, it's always the first, right? There's a different nusach. There are those who say, it's ala nisim ve'al purkan, ve'al. So there are those who skip the vav for ala milchamot. So the way you read it is ala tchuot ala milchamot. For the salvation from the wars. Not for the salvation and for the wars, but from salvation from the wars. Okay, that's one way of reading it. I know ala tchuot shel milchamot, shenitzachnu b'milchama. The fact that we were victorious in the war, that's what we're giving thanks for. Okay, that's one answer. A second answer, he says, Yesh mefarshim ala milchamot shelacham HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shvilanu. We're giving thanks for the fact that, not the fact that there was a war, but the fact that when there was in the war, that Hashem fought the wars for us. Doesn't mean we don't have to have an army, we don't have to do shtatlot. We do, obviously, but we understand with that Hashem is v'aynu shenasa HaKadosh Baruch Hu lebal davar b'milchama, וכמו שאומרים, רבת את ליבם, שהשם יברך היה הבעדין בליב שלנו. He was the one who was fighting for us. As the pasuk says, Hashem yilachem lachem. Hashem will fight for you. And then he says a third answer. He says, נראה עוד לפרש, על פי מה שכתוב the space of the Beit HaLevi in Parashat Vayishalach, when we have Shirat Hayam. So it says, בעניין השירה, דחיוב שירה, אינו רק על התשועה, אלא גם על הצרה שמבלעדיה לא היה שייך כלל ישוע. He says, at the end of the day, it's an amazing thing that he's saying here. But he says, at the end of the day, the fact that we are saved, where does the salvation come from? And ultimately, you have this geulah, and you have this redemption, which comes, and we are in a higher place than we were before the war began. So we're giving thanks for the entire situation which happened, beginning from the tzara and the geulah which came out of it. So he says, "Yesh chovat hoda'ah al hashiyabud, shehu hechsher hageulah, kmo al hageulah atzma." Right? We are in a certain sense. There is a hoda'ah, there's a thankfulness that's given for the shi'abud, for the slavery, which created the opportunity for the geulah to come afterwards. He says from the number of psukim, we see that it's written, and he quotes the Gemara Psachim. The Gemara Psachim that tells us when we have the obligation of saying Hallel, it says very interesting language. It says Hallel zeh mi amro. Nevi'im shebeneim tikulahen liYisrael. The Nevi'im has made an establishment that we are going to have to say Hallel when sheyul mimoto al kol pelek v'pelek v'al kol tzara v'tzara shelo tavo alehem v'lich shenig'alin omrim oto al geulatan. So there are three things the Gemara says on every perek, every significant event that takes place. Al kol tzara v'tzara, on every distress that they're in, and when they are redeemed from that distress. But it seems to be implying that all three things, each one and every of itself, is part of a process that ultimately validates the Hallel as well. Based on that, he gives a very interesting explanation, which we don't have time to go into now, but maybe tomorrow we'll discuss it, of the Machloket Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Everybody remembers Machloket Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai in Chanukah. Do we add candles? Do we start with one candle going up to 8, or do we start with 8 going up to 1? I always wonder, what was Beit Shammai thinking? Right? It's always very nice when the Chanukah gets filled up. Imagine that, less and less love. But based on this explanation, so Rav Soloveitchik wants to suggest maybe what the idea behind Beit Shammai was, but we're out of time. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash Shammai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakot Yisrael, Yifrach Chibal Em Dom Mitzvot, Shnei Amar Adonai Chived Zman Tzidko, Yagdir